Greetings and welcome. To begin, we acknowledge that the CSU Monterey Bay campus sits on the unceded territory of the Rumsen Ohlone people. I'm Professor Umi Vaughn, Faculty Director for the Center for Black Student Success at CSU Monterey Bay. Our center is all about engaging and empowering African diaspora students to make their experience here better and to ensure that they succeed and graduate from our institution. Our event tonight is part of the Catherine Dunham African Diaspora Art Series. It features artists whose work touches different aspects of the Black world and is also engaged in the struggle for social justice. Welcome again to Black History Month, February 2021. Black History is 365 days a year, and today we're taking another opportunity to feature another important contributor to Black world culture. Today's conversation is about art as a way to express our deepest emotions, as a way to comment on the human condition, and as a way to act and help create change. I'm very glad to have with us this evening a friend and a colleague, Mr. Eesuu Orundide. Welcome, Eesuu.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. I wish we were
Yes,
sitting like 2 feet apart, but we're making it work.
yes, sir, we are. I want to remind audience members to ask your questions for Eesuu through the chat, okay? And we'll answer those. Eesuu, I met you many years ago. We were dancing. I don't know if you remember this.
Mm,
We were a part of a Haitian um, performance of some kind. And I remember you showing up there and not considering yourself a dancer. Um, but you came and you danced your behind off. And what I learned about you in that moment is, the great passion that you had for anything creative and that you were a person to dedicate time and great energy for the culture, as they say. So again, it's
mm.
glad to have you here. And to start us off, I would love for you to tell us about your youth, how you got into art, and what were some of your earliest inspirations.
Mm. Um, my youth, I think my story is that of a single child. Like I'm my mother's only child, and she was a single mother for a long time. My parents are both in my life, but they separated. So I was with my mom a lot. So it was like a very low key existence, me and my mom. And I had to do a lot to keep myself busy. And I've
Mm,
always been an artist, but those circumstances also created where I had lots of time to myself that I needed to fill. And that's one of the ways I kept myself busy. I was always working on a little project or, creating something or, one time I was into football. I made every little uniform in the NFL, this big and stuffed it with cotton to make them 3D. And then I went all the way through and chose a uniform from every team. And then I was done. And then I do something else. So it's just been my whole life. That's who I am.
yes. Can you remember some early like inspirations in terms of painters or
Mm.
sculptors in that kind of line, or how was that?
My earliest inspirations came right from in the family.
Yeah.
Um, my uncle was a mechanical illustrator, worked for Hughes, and
Hmm.
he did these like elaborate drawings of like a helicopter part, but disassembled and stretched out like that in perfect, exact detail. These were, those kind of drawings. And I used to go over to his house sometimes, and he'd show me these drawings and, tell me about stuff he was doing in art school. He'd show me some of the models he was drawing, and I'd be like, wow. He'd be like, yeah, you could do stuff like this. My grandfather on my mother's side was an architect, so I was always inspired by him and what he was doing and just creative people. My pops at one time was really into photography,
Okay.
and so it was always been close. Some of my artistic inspiration, a lot of it comes from like stuff like hip hop. I really didn't follow
Mm,
painters as a kid. I followed musicians and rappers and stuff like that. Those were like my influences. And it was once I became conscious of my own art practice, the people who I felt like I wanted to follow were people who I felt like were using the art as a tool to build culture and liberate. Like, so I like the Bob Marleys and the, you know, Lauren Hills and the Public
Yeah.
Enemies and the Fela Kutis, or even the Aretha Franklins, like all that. Those are my influences. I
Yeah.
try to paint that, or I try to sculpt that. And then
Yeah.
later, as I got into my 20s and started practicing, I started to really be up in the museums, and I got into Harlem Renaissance and all those artists. I won't even name one, but all those Harlem Renaissance artists, I soaked them up for a period of time, and they all became a part of me. And
Yeah.
at some point, Basquiat became a big influence on me. So, and it keeps
Yeah.
going and going. Yeah.
So, Isu, did you have formal artistic training? And what roles do practice and experimentation play in your artistic life now?
Mm. Yeah, I've had formal artistic training, and I've done a lot on my own. Um, I was always that kid who drew a lot, so that I've always been practicing. But around college time, I started taking classes first in community college in LA, and I must have taken foundational drawing about 12 times in my life. I could never get enough of that foundational drawing class. It's just the essence. And I went to Academy of Art for a couple semesters and took some classes. And I had an experience that kind of turned me off. So then I went to Laney College here in Oakland and took a bunch of classes. And the crazy thing was I wasn't really focused on a degree. I was just soaking up information, like make me better. How can I get better? Ooh, I think I need to get better at figure drawing, so I take a figure drawing class. So it's kind of piecemeal, but that was my
Yes.
formal education. Yeah.
So, I've been a fan of yours for quite a long time, and I've noticed a few different periods in your work. I want to start our viewing now and bring
Mhm.
on some of the slides and have you talk about some of the imagery, the color scheme that you work with, like what's happening in this work.
Okay. Oh wow, this is a one-off piece. This came, I don't know, 2007 or so, and it was right after Katrina. It's a freestyle. This is a straight up freestyle. I just started painting, and as
Mm,
elements came up, I tried to find ways to integrate them. Abe Lincoln's head was a collage. I cut that out of something, and I put his head on there, and I added this body. At the time, I was being influenced by one of Basquiat's paintings, where he has these like stereotypical natives, on an African safari, the natives, and the natives would be carrying like the goods on top of their heads for the
mm,
safari. The white people on safari would be leading the safari, and the natives would be carrying the stuff on their heads, like in the movies. So
mm-hmm,
Basquiat did an image of that that really struck with me. So for a while, I was doing these images of stuff on black people's heads, and using the crate or whatever it was on their head to symbolize things. This one turned out to be Abe Lincoln carrying, a dollar bill, bombs raining. It was America, streets flooding, stars to kind of reference the flag. Um,
right.
yeah,
Talk
that's a
about
freestyle.
turning something on its head, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's look at the next one.
Both of these are portraits. I guess as a parent, but again, I freestyle a lot. I like a lot of improvisation. I'll start off doing a portrait. The one on the left actually was something I did. Hold on one sec.
So,
All right, thanks. I'm sorry. My son was doing dishes and it was clanking. I wanted to talk to him.
okay.
Um, so that's a piece I did for my students as a demonstration. It's a portrait of a woman. I do these a lot. And really, the freestyle is the background. The painting itself was to show lights and shadows. And at the time, I was really thinking a lot about how we were using drones to bomb these countries, especially these Middle Eastern countries and African countries. And, it was in the Obama age. And I felt like that was something we were turning a blind eye to because we had a black man in office. So let's not look at what our government is doing. And we were doing foul stuff. So I had drones showing up everywhere. The one on the right is an oil painting, and again, it's just a freestyle portrait. I kind of I think of this piece as one of the Oshun pieces. I end up doing a lot of portraits of Oshun.
Right,
Um, Go ahead.
right. So with Oshun being this West African Yoruba deity all about fertility and
Hmm.
beauty and sensuality, also commerce, it's
Hmm.
fascinating how you have images that relate to that, and then in the background there could be something like a drone, right? What a contrast. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm my interest. This is another Oshun piece, and she's in the river, and she's got her hand is supposed to be raised, and she's got honey trickling down onto her body.
Mm,
I don't know if you can tell it right now. And she's got some waist beads and stuff, but and that piece in the upper left is a sun shining down on her. And this piece actually was collected by a member of our community, Theo, who's you know a big part of the Malanga Center and the Samba Funk community. He collected this piece back in the day, so that's still in the community.
yes. um let's look at the next one.
Oshun. Oshun. Sometimes I think I'm painting things to call upon them in my life. A
Yeah.
lot of times I'll do that consciously, like, I need some of this in my life. How can I conjure that? How can I call on that? And I will paint it. And now I have a representation of that that I can, look at and reflect on. Even just the process sometimes of painting that, it puts me in the presence of that spirit, and that's enough. So I do a lot of pieces of Oshun. I'm calling on that wealth, and I'm calling on that sensuality, and calling on that beauty.
There's a certain kind of conjuring. Before we go on to the next image, I want to ask, what are some of the kind of challenges that you faced to sustain your artistic practice, and what are some of the things you're most proud of this far in your
Mm,
career?
good question. Good question. Um, I think the biggest challenge to sustaining my artistic practice is commerce. It's really challenging to take your passion and make it a commercial enterprise. And so I've been at this professionally for 25, I don't know, a long time, 20 something
Hmm.
years. And that's always been like the tension is trying to balance that. I want to do what I love as a way of providing for myself and my family, but at the same time, once it is, marketable commodity, it's hard to, it's just a balance. That's the biggest challenge for me. What was
Hmm.
your other
And the
question?
thing you're most proud, and a thing that you're most proud of?
Still being around doing it, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I
Say
mean?
word. Hmm.
It's a blessing to live on our creativity. And a lot of times that commercial side of it will push people right on out of it. If you can't
Hmm.
sustain that, sometimes it's hard to find the time or the energy or the resources to to continue doing it. So I think that's the thing I'm
Hmm.
proud of still, that I'm able to create and keep it. I don't want to say relevant. I don't want to claim my own relevance, but you know what I mean,
Hmm.
to be an active
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
For sure. I know, Isu, that you are recently named one of the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts top 100 influential artists or creatives for this year. So you're
Mhm.
doing a good job. Your work is very relevant and inspiring, my friend, for real.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move on to a different body of images now. This is a different material that I've seen you work with a
Hmm.
lot, doing stuff
Hmm.
on wood. What are these images about?
These are like my pop artwork, right? So I'm influenced by a lot of things, and part of it is pop art. I used to hate Andy Warhol. I thought he was a fraud and a fake, and then I got into it, and I was like, oh, okay, I can dig the concept. What I realized is that for things to be pop art, to be kind of common items, that's
Hmm.
really cultural. Because Campbell's soup is not really in my kitchen. Campbell's soup that made Andy Warhol famous for being a common item is not common in my house. We don't eat Campbell soup.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't. It
Yeah.
didn't have the same cultural resonance for me. So I started exploring with ideas of ways to bring that in. Um, the the one that says vapid bullshit is supposed to be a take on a Pabst Blue Ribbon, and I did a
Okay.
show. I did a show at Rock Paper Scissors a while back, and I thought, man, it's a bunch of hipsters in there. What am I going to do for hipsters? So I decided to attack them head on, and I did three Pabst Blue Ribbon in the traditional red, white, and blue, and then I did three more in a red, black, and green and gold to kind of give it that African feel as a contrast. And then I
Hmm.
changed the label to say vapid bullshit as an attack, really, on what I thought was the hipster culture.
Hmm.
Like, y'all are just, it's empty. It's just a
Hmm.
bunch of BS. And I did it in this pop art style to kind of like throw Andy Warhol, one of what I felt like is the art world heroes, throw your hero's work back in your face and make a cultural statement. Whereas the
Wow.
one
And
on
then,
the right side is something I felt like resonated with our culture. It's a bottle of Crystal hot sauce. Louisiana hot
yes, sir.
sauce, it's one of about three or four that so many black families recognize from generations. My grandmother liked the Red Rooster, but the Crystal was around too, and I did that as like a black pop art, straight up. It's an everyday item, but seeing it like that, people respond. They're like, "Oh, Crystal hot sauce, that means something to me." And these are
Hmm.
done in spray paint with stencils, so they're 8, 9, 10 layer stencils, and I would do multiples of them. And the hot sauce I
Yeah.
actually did on the streets in Atlanta. I went to Atlanta for an
Okay.
art festival, and I brought all the materials. I brought stencils with me, brought all the materials from Home Depot in Atlanta, set up on the streets of Atlanta downtown, and just spent a day spray painting layer after layer and building up this collection of work. So that was fun.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next one. I think it's taking us into the world of sculpture.
Mm.
I think that I've talked to you before about um, a certain sculpture style that you use that comes from Africa. And
Hmm.
so, as we look at some of these sculptural images, tell us, what material you're working with, what these
Hmm.
images are about, and where.
Okay. Um, I'll say I was blessed, Umi, to spend about 6 months in Zimbabwe years ago, about 20
Mm.
years ago. I went with a friend of mine. He said, I got an artist friend out there. Let's go kick it with him. Okay. His artist friend turns out to be a brother named Nicholas Mukomborangwa, rest in peace, who is the statesman at the time of Shona sculpture, which was a huge artistic movement happening in Zimbabwe. And so I got to spend 6 months under the master, and I picked it up. I caught the bug, and I was carving stone there, and I came back and I kept carving. And it was cool to take this really old traditional African art form and infuse my contemporary ideas and imagery into it. And then it turned into this. This image is at SF State, and I started displaying the sculptures kind of as installations. At first, it was just how do I present this stone, and then I thought, well, the furniture it's presented on could have a character, and then I could add soil to represent the earth and it being grounded, and then I started adding cowrie shells, and then this one's actually sitting on a pile of soil on the gallery floor to connect it. I think I was trying to connect it as an ancestor, like in down, rooted into the earth.
Yes. Hmm.
Hmm. This is another one. This is a very African American story. And again, these sculptures are improvised. I just start carving and I see what comes out. This one has two fronts. So we're looking at one front. I don't know if you can see the face, but it has big lips that are facing us and the
Yeah.
bridge of the nose going back. On the
Hmm.
cheek of the sculpture, there's a giant teardrop. So he's in pain. And he's wearing
Mm.
a chain around his neck that has a medallion in the shape of the continent of Africa. So he's got this hurt that's unseen, but it's also we know he's connected to Africa. The chain though is more like a chain of submission than a chain of jewelry. It's like a big
Yeah.
link. We don't have a picture, but on the other side is not the back. It's a different front, and on the other front, the chain has him bonded or in bondage. So it was kind of showing, I don't know, a strange duality, I think, of the black state.
Yes.
Yeah. It's another one. This is the volcanic stone. This is in a gallery that I was part of with some friends, Marcel Diallo, Gatinji, Mbire, Kimara Dixon. Trying to think. I think that was all of us. Um, anyway, this stone was a piece of volcanic stone, and it is a character in grief. This one is about releasing
Hmm.
grief. He's got his head back and his hand on his head, and it was just about releasing grief because I felt like
Hmm.
that's a ritual. Again, calling upon things through the process. And so for me, this was me releasing grief. This was a process of releasing all the grief I was carrying at the time.
Yes, sir.
Mm. Wow.
I love this one. I love this one.
This one y'all can go see. If you're in the Bay Area, you can go see this. This is at Raimondi Park. It is my one piece of public art, official public art. It's a bronze I got to do. I got commissioned by the city of Oakland to do this bronze. It's at Raimondi Park in West Oakland. It's known as a soccer and football field right behind that. And the image itself, really, it's a sports field. And so this piece I called Ashe, and it's meant to represent movement in kind of an abstract way. It's kind of a human figure. There's a head there, and he's just down low. He's so low and so fast, almost like a human panther. That was the spirit of it. But I wanted to exaggerate that spirit because when we play sports, sometimes we go beyond our human selves and we transform into these amazing amazing moving creatures. We become panthers and gazelles and birds. We fly and we swoop and we. So that was to express that. And
When I look at this piece, Isu, it makes me think even of Usain Bolt,
mm,
right? Like
mhm,
this, dynamic figure, like a man turned into a motor,
mhm,
even, you know what I mean?
mhm.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Yeah,
I wanna I wanna ask you just in terms of your travel around the world, what has it been like to be a black man, um, traveling to Africa or to other parts of the diaspora? What kind of things or
mhm.
people have you discovered?
Wow, God, that's a broad question, man. I wish
Hmm.
I had traveled all around the world like you said, but I've been a couple of places. It's just I've been a lot of places where there are black folks. I've been to a couple African countries, Zimbabwe and South Africa, Mozambique, I think Swaziland, maybe one or two I'm not thinking about. And it's been awakening. It one thing it makes me realize is my Americanness, if I could say
Yeah,
that, which leads,
yeah,
I'm, and I think of myself as so much the other in America that saying my Americanness almost leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Like I'm embarrassed, but then I realize some of the things that I am in a product of America. And I can't shake that. And it's not about shaking that. That's part of who I am. So part of it has been
hmm,
a reflection on myself, but sometimes it's just nice to see black folks doing things unobstructed by the rules of the other. I mean,
yes,
small things come to mind, like, you get on a bus in Zimbabwe and the bus driver is slapping music and nobody's tripping. It's, of course it's respectful music most of the times, but it's not a problem for the elders. It's not a problem for anybody. Nobody's complaining. We all like music. So yeah, it makes the ride better. It just makes sense. But you get on the bus in the United States and you start slapping music, one, everybody's going to have a problem. Turn that off. You're disturbing people. And so it was weird. I've grown up with that. You're a rebel if you play bus music on the bus. You're a bad person if you play music on the bus. You're disturbing everybody. But in Africa, they play music on the bus because who wants to sit around, on a quiet bus
yeah,
ride for 4 hours? Like it just starts to make sense. You see some things that feel so out of sync here, and then you put it in the context of black people doing what we do, and it just relaxes and makes sense.
yeah,
Lots of things like that.
yeah. One that always comes up for me is being able to say be on the beach or in some particular space late at night or something like that. So natural in a lot of other places and so zipped
Mhm.
up and controlled here.
Mhm.
Moving on, you mentioned one of the sculptures we just looked at being commissioned official public art. And I
Mhm.
know that in addition to that, you do some kind of guerrilla renegade art that you decide where it's going to go. Right.
Don't
And so
exist.
let's look.
Don't exist.
No, you don't. Right.
No,
So
no,
let's look
no.
at some of that.
I take pictures of somebody else's public art, so I got a
So
collection of
talk to me
pieces.
about some of these pieces. What are you saying and where and how do you
Okay.
decide?
This one is having fun. This one is really having fun. There are these electrical boxes. This was around Lake Merritt in Oakland. And I just thought, wow, what's a way I can make a really simple statement? So, in Oakland and the Bay Area in general, housing is crazy. Housing is crazy, yet we have
Yes,
a
sir.
housing boom, right? If you look around, there are condos being built in every direction. And at the same time, homelessness exploding because nobody can afford the condos. Even the people who live here can't afford the condos for the most part. So this was a take on that. I thought I'd just like make a couple of lines on an electrical box and highlight that this is almost a housing situation. For 700,000, you get a little, 4 foot by whatever box, and that was the statement that was about.
Yes, sir.
Mm. This piece is a mixed media piece. These letters are about 4 feet tall, and each of them is a mixed media piece in and of itself. I did this with the Soul Salon 10 collective. Shout out Soul Salon 10 years ago, and yeah, each letter is a mixed media piece. The overall concept was really a statement on land and how land is wealth, um, and it was kind of a statement on black land ownership in Oakland. It was a statement on gentrification. I was working a lot with Marcel Diallo at the Black Dot, and that was something we talked a lot about. Like, you have to own some land to really build on something. Otherwise, you're subject to somebody else's whim. They may say, "Oh, I decide I want to do something else with the house or the land or whatever." So having a piece of land that you control is really important, and this piece highlighted that. So there's the mixed media on the letters, and then down below, I don't know what I was thinking. There are condoms filled with soil. That's what's dripping
Oh,
from the land is these condoms filled with soil, and at the bottom it's cut off in this photo, but at the bottom there's a whole floor full of soil. So it's kind of like the land is down below, and these condoms are dripping from this conceptual piece, holding actual earth as if the earth is the semen, the earth is the life force.
yes,
It was
sir.
crazy.
One of the one of the themes that um, you just mentioned in terms of wealth and ownership, you have a statement that I've heard you make. We define wealth.
Hmm.
And I know that in ancient African societies, the cowrie shell was a actual like piece of currency.
Currency,
So
yeah.
so tell us about some of these images with the cowrie shell, Baba.
Yeah, you said it well. I want to push ideas of what wealth is. I feel like, especially in America, we're so taught to chase after wealth. But the wealth we're taught to chase after, there's nothing wrong with chasing after wealth, but then it gets defined for us what that wealth is. Does it mean
Mm-hmm.
you have a Mercedes Benz, or does it mean you have a certain type of clothing? You got off-white clothing. What is the wealth we're supposed to be chasing? And we historically, typically, have given up definition of that. Right? It's cool. Let's get the wealth, but can we define it for ourselves? It doesn't even mean that it's not a Mercedes, but let's take control of the definition. I feel like there's a power there that we sometimes give over to others, which leaves us chasing after what they define for us. So the
Yeah.
cowrie shell. No, please go.
Oh, I was just going to mention, Baba, that in W.E.B. Du Bois's famous book, The Souls of Black Folk, there's a chapter, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it talks precisely about that notion of African Americans striving, but that we should be careful, mindful of what we strive for.
Mm.
Education, but what kind of education? Wealth,
Hmm.
but how should we use that wealth and what does it really mean? So um, that concept that you bring out is really an important one.
Wow,
Let's
you said that's
let's
in
look
the
at some
Souls
more of
of
the
Black Folk?
images. Yeah,
Okay, I read it. It's been a long time. I wonder if that's in that subconscious working.
it may be.
Mm. This is a series. This is 16 cowrie shells. This is probably the most abstract of the whole series. But the series was based on a system of divinity from Nigeria. I can't remember if that's a Yoruba thing. I
Yeah.
mean, they definitely do the divining, but in this particular system, it was 16 cowrie shells.
Yes, sir.
And I was tripping off of like, who started that? Who sat down and tossed shells on a mat until they realized like, oh yeah, I'm connected to the divine. I'm communicating with the spirit realm, right? Who did that? How did you figure it out? So I thought I would put myself in their shoes and I would throw 16 calorie shells over and over and over and over again, and I would record those throwings as paintings. So I'm not throwing
Wow.
actual shells, I'm throwing painted shells, and maybe the divine will reveal itself. If I do it enough time, maybe I will create a space for the divine to speak to me. But how will I know until I do it? So it's an ongoing series, and it's mostly freestyle. Sometimes I have a theme. This is another one, and I try to let whatever comes in come in. If I'm inspired by words, I let the word come in because I feel like that must be the divine speaking to me. I'm asking the divine to speak through me. So if a word comes to me, I gotta assume that the work I'm doing is, and I let it come through, and it's a part of the piece. I know the pieces are done when I have 16 shells.
Yes.
So that's that series.
So I want to ask another kind of artistic question, as an artist and also as an entrepreneur, a businessman.
Mm,
This could be a helpful piece of advice for the students who are listening in on our conversation too.
mm.
Baba, what does professionalism mean to you? And how has hard work kind of helped you forge the career that you have?
Strong questions, man. Strong, strong questions. I'll start with professionalism. My first thought about professionalism, and I like to define it too, so I'm glad you're asking, is you can do what you profess to do, right? You profess to be able to whatever it is you do, then you need to be able to come through and do that. And whatever it takes to be prepared to do that, whatever infrastructure, whatever communication, you need to come through and be able to do what you say you are able to do. That's my overall thought about professionalism. So if I profess to
Yes.
be a painter, I got to be able to come through and paint. If you say I need you, I can't say, oh, well, I can't, I got to find a way. I got to find a way to do at least what I profess to be able to do. And then
Hmm.
I think what most people think about when they think about professionalism is the habits associated with that, which no doubt, because if you don't, can't think of one right now. If I don't communicate, that's part of being professional. If I don't do my taxes, that's part of being professional. So there are a
Mm.
whole slew of habits and practices that have to go into that. But I think overall, you need to be able to do what you profess to do.
We have
What was
one
the other?
question from we have one question from the audience that's kind of related to some of the things you said earlier about land ownership and
Mm-hmm.
you know real path to social justice. Let's check that question out.
Mm-hmm. How do Black folks leave all the BS behind and recognize that the way to economic mobility is through equitable land ownership practices? That should be what we advocate for immediately. Ooh, how do Black folks leave all the BS behind? We could take that starter right there and apply it to a whole lot of situations. Um, so I
Tough
guess that's
question
the
though.
short. I guess that's the core of the question. Like, how do we leave the BS behind? I think it means a lot of personal work. It doesn't mean individually necessarily, but I think we need a lot of personal work on ourselves. I think we can probably mature as a people because I think it's so easy because I feel like maybe sometimes as a whole, we're a little bit adolescent. So it's easy to
Mm,
mess with us and get us off focus. You know what I mean? Ooh, he called you. No, no, no. Oh, we spent a whole lot of time and energy on it. And maybe that time and energy should be on land accumulation or, you know what I mean? Or making sure that
hmm.
my taxes are good or that I can protect my loved ones from violent police officers, you know? So
Yes.
I can't answer that fully. I don't have the answer to that, but that's what comes to mind is
Hmm.
how do we mature ourselves and grow ourselves so that we can collectively move with that kind of maturity and focus.
Yes. All over the Bay Area, um, in gallery shows and in people's homes that I've visited, I see images that you've created that kind of celebrate the revolutionary. And I
Mm.
want to just ask you to talk to us about these two images before we move on to a next body of work.
Hmm. The one on the left, I know it says revolutionary to everybody, but really this is a sugarcane worker. I want to say from
Oh.
Nicaragua. I can't remember where I got that image, but I did a series of work on sugar as a broad theme. Everything from its history, its connection to slavery, its connection to colonialism, its connection to our current day health situation, you know, my own personal addiction, everything dealing with sugar. And this was one of the images from that. And it was just a sugarcane worker. But, you know, we see this and we start thinking revolutionary, which I love. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the piece on the right is a picture of, oh, don't let me forget his name. I want to say William S. Johnson. His name is slipping me. It's full. I know it's William, but I think it's William Johnson. The brother wrote a book called Negroes with Guns. He had been a chapter president of an NAACP, and ultimately they came under attack by white supremacists, and they decided to organize themselves, take up arms, protect themselves, protect their community, and that just brought the full heat of the police. I can't remember the details of the story right now, but that brought even more heat. FBI, and this man and his wife ended up having to go on the run. All the people involved in their community either got taken down or had to go on the run and go into exile. He was one of the ones that went into exile, but he wrote this powerful book called Negroes with Guns, and it's not even him telling people that they should get armed. It was his story and how he
Mm-hmm.
chose to take up arms as opposed to let his community continue to be harassed. So the collage in the background tells a lot of the story. At the base, there's a row of skulls, and those skulls represent our ancestors, layers and layers of ancestors. I think right above that is some tribal African tribal warriors. I don't remember. I can't see the details of the picture to tell you what tribe, but it's just to harken back that we come from warriors. And then there's another layer of warriors, and then there's a layer of the clan, which represents
Mm.
the one layer of the threat. That yellow piece right in the middle is something I found online. It was like Negro hunting season or something like that. You know, some kind of card that was made by white supremacists to say that it's open season on hunting black people. So I found
Yeah.
that and added that in. And then the top layer is police and kind of the contemporary version of the threat.
I think that might have been Robert Johnson, if I'm not
Robert, is it
mistaken.
Robert Johnson? No, Robert
I'm not
Johnson
sure,
didn't do
but
it.
that's one for us to look up for
I feel
sure.
terrible for forgetting his name.
Yeah, it's
I
good. It's
feel
good.
terrible.
Another thing, Baba, that I want to ask you about is a series of beautiful work that you've done that has warriors standing guard, staking claim, making statements, protecting, the community,
Hmm.
protecting where they are.
Hmm.
And I want you to tell us about this imagery. Where does it come
Mm.
from, and What are you doing
hmm
with this body of work?
hmm Um, it's kind of an evolution from the portrait you showed earlier. There's a kind of a standard portrait I do, three quarters, sometimes woman, sometimes man. And I had the honor to be working with Emory Douglas at the time. He had just released his book, and we did a couple gallery shows together at the gallery that I mentioned earlier. And I wanted to show black people like he had. He did a bunch of images of black people taking up guns, and the symbolism to that was black people defending themselves and defending our neighborhoods. But at the time, I felt like, now when we see black people with guns, we don't feel that same sense of we're defending against other people. A lot of times it brings up images of us using them on ourselves or each other. So I thought, well, what could
Yes,
I
yes.
do instead of the gun? So I took it to the spear because I thought this is a little more indigenous and traditional and shows us more as a warrior than like somebody who might be reckless or do something, dangerous to his own community. So I started
Mm-hmm.
doing these warriors, and they're contemporary warriors from all over the diaspora. The one thing they have in common is they have that spear ready. And a lot of times, I make T-shirts, so then I get into the what the mark is on the T-shirt, and that became an opportunity to use that space to get a little message across. And so that's how I use these warriors. At one time they were completely underground. I didn't want to be. I wanted them to be anonymous. These are some of the earlier ones, and then people started recognizing them as my work, and I embrace that, and I claim that. But at one time, I wanted it to be more covert, so that I could use them as a weapon against what I thought was, whatever it may be, usually tyranny of
Mm-hmm.
some sort.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this one's at, I think that's Occupy Oakland, and I had come down there and hung that piece. I thought it was a great look. I got the police in the riot gear, and here's my piece in the background saying justice. I loved getting that. I was so tickled that I could go down there and take that picture.
Yes, sir.
Like, y'all don't know
So,
it's me.
okay. So, Baba, we are living in wild times now. We got the coronavirus, we got all this political turmoil, a nation divided. We had the attack on the capital of the nation a few weeks ago.
Mm,
These are times that call on American citizens to respond somehow, to contemplate a new direction, new possibilities of living better together. How
mm.
have you responded to the current moment through your art?
That's a great question, man. I have to say, I've been doing street art. That's been my thing. I've been really enjoying the street art because the things that I want to say, I want to get it directly to people. I don't want to put it in a gallery. I don't want to ask somebody's permission. I
Hmm.
hope nobody who's watching this is gonna get me arrested. But I just want to bring it right to the people. I want it to be able to be raw. And so that's kind of how I've responded. The other way I've responded, which I know we'll talk about eventually, is in my apparel stuff. That's because that's another way that just gets right into people's hands, and people can wear that on their bodies and express that they may feel the same way, or it may influence how they feel by seeing somebody else wearing this image or this statement or whatever it is. So it's been pretty consistent for me. I feel like it's the same mission I was on 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's just a more wide open time where people are talking about it more. So I'm staying the path, keep doing what I've been doing, and keep looking for the things that I think need light shed on them, even small things.
Yeah. So
Hmm
you mentioned, Isu, that you've gotten into t-shirt designs, apparel, etc. Let's start
hmm
to talk about some of that work. Just like I'm a fan of your painting and your sculpture, etc., I'm into your clothing too. So talk
hmm
to us about the messages that you put through in the clothing, where we can get some of the stuff, what kind
hmm
of garments you do, etc.
hmm Okay. So the name of the line is Orundide Afro Urban Couture. Excuse me. And so what I wanted to evoke with that was Orundide is my name, so I'm the designer, but the Afro Urban Couture is kind of the vibe of the line. It's definitely talking about blackness of some sort or from a black perspective. It's urban because I didn't want it to be. I mean, it's t-shirts. That's urban wear. Even though people all over everywhere wear t-shirts, but the idea of the graphic on the t-shirt to me is like urban contemporary clothes, and the couture being, we do things a little bit special. I don't do big runs. It's not mass produced. Sometimes I'm printing a particular shirt for a particular person, and I wanted to give it that quality of fineness. And so those are some of the images. I like to mix pop culture with black culture or revolutionary culture. You inspired this image, which has been my most successful T-shirt design over the last 4 or 5 years. And the Golden State Warriors were winning their first championships, and I thought, okay, I want to do something to celebrate the Warriors. I like the name Warriors. I do images of Warriors. How do I show something different than the basketball team? And I was thinking of a little glyph of an Aztec warrior. And I reached out to you. I said, man, I'm thinking about doing this design. I don't want to be someone who appropriates culture, because I'm sensitive to that. So is this appropriating culture? You suggested, well, instead of using that Aztec image, why don't you use something from the Black Panthers? That's all I needed to hear. When I went to research images, this is the most iconic Black Panther image I could think of. And the fact that it shows Huey Newton holding a gun in one hand and that African spear in the other just said everything. And then I thought, I'm not going to say Golden State Warriors, but if I make it say Oakland Warriors, then I'm showing that the message that's kind of behind it is like, this is the real image of the Warriors fighting for Oakland. The basketball team's
Mm.
cool, and I'm not trying to diss the Golden State Warriors. I'm a fan, but I thought it was an opportunity to flip it so that when people look at the shirt and they go, "Oh, Golden State Warriors," oh, who's that? And now the
Yes,
conversation has
sir.
started. And
Yeah,
now they think, why did you put this image and these words together? Oh, okay. These are the people who actually fought, sacrificed, gave their lives for people in Oakland and broader.
hmm I really
I've
love
been.
this piece too. Your explanation about this bandana. I have one of these, and I
Mm,
want you to tell people where you got this imagery from.
mhm. Bandanas have been another thing that I've been doing this year since we've been dealing with COVID. At least we have to cover our faces, and I wanted to make uh, things that weren't disposable for people to use. And so I came up with the bandanas. I'm hoping the bandanas will live beyond the COVID life too, and then we just have a cool piece of gear to wear. But I enjoy the pattern of it. So this piece is actually taking stars from the tomb of Queen Nefertari. They would, in the Egyptian tombs, they would cover the ceiling with stars, excuse me, to represent the universality of it. And these stars are taken from an image of the ceiling of the main chamber in Queen Nefertari's tomb. And I thought, what a powerful thing to capture and bring down and make something we can wear and adorn ourselves with, and bring a piece of that royalty and that old sense of the universe. The Egyptians were really into the stars too, the Cometans. And so to take some of their science, some of their, ashe and wrap it around our necks or wrap it on our face, I felt was, I don't know, I thought it was something I could do for my community, something I could offer up. So it's been a lot of fun. I love the bandana stuff.
Absolutely. So, kind of beginning to bring us home, I want to ask Isu, what advice you have for young people who are, early in the game, wanting to craft a career for themselves that they
Mm,
love and that's sustainable for them? What advice do you have?
mm. Start as early as you can. Look for clarity as early as you can, and it may change. But the quicker you can get a clear path to begin to pursue, the quicker you can begin to develop yourself along the way. And the quicker you can begin to identify and plug into opportunities, because it's also a path of building and accepting and back to that word professionalism, right? It's a chance for you to profess what you do and come through. And be honest about your love, and be smart about the game too. You know, whatever it is, we deal in economies and we deal in professional realms. So start to see ways to monetize it. And I'm not a big preacher of commercialism or capitalism, but it is part of the process. And even going back to merchant culture, right? It doesn't mean that it's the primary concern, but it is a way to be able to sustain what you do. So start to see those opportunities early, and look at them as, I would say, bulk opportunities. The bulk opportunities are better because they can do more for you in shorter steps. You know, you don't have to look for an opportunity to sell 1,000 things or whatever. There may be someone who wants to pay you to do one thing really well and give you a chunk of money or a chunk of resources to do it. And those things are out there. And otherwise, be honest to yourself. Be honest with yourself and be focused. It takes a lot of commitment.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes it takes sacrifice, right? It's not the easy path. It's not the well written path. Sometimes it takes sacrifice, and it may mean that, but I made a decision, Umi, in 1996, and a
Wow.
really close friend of mine, who was my girlfriend at the time, who gave me the name Eesuu. Um, I remember professing to her. She was talking about my future. We were talking about the future, and I was like, you know what? I've already given in. I'm gonna pursue this artistic path, and I'm either gonna make a way or I'm gonna die trying. And I don't see any other way. And that's what it's been, And I really had no plan B, because I came to that peace with myself. I would rather go super hard at this and be broke if that's what it brings, and thank God it hasn't. But if that's what it brings, I'm content with that. I'm content with that life. That's what it's supposed to be for me. So that's my advice.
Yes. So, as a last question for you, Isu, I want to ask what's next for you in your artistic, work in galleries or in the streets or wherever. What's next for you in terms of fashion designs, and then where can people purchase your art and your clothing?
Mm-hmm. Let's start with next steps. Next for me, I don't know. I think there's some changes coming for me. I might be relocating. So those are when I think about next, I'm thinking about life moves that I'm going to be making. So some change like that is coming for me. Artistically, I think more of this. I'm doing the thing with the YBCA, that 100. I think some opportunities to talk and think and have that be the work, and build with other artists and other creatives on a institutional level is where it's going. And I used to think, no, I'm supposed to be in the field just creating, and I want to do that, but also, like, these other ways of touching people, and maybe touching a broad group of people at a single time. It's almost like going from being the star player or a contributing player to coaching. Now you're thinking of the schemes, and helping younger players give it, or maybe it's about being a general manager. I love sports analogies. You know what I mean? Or owning a team, or being an activist in the field, those kinds of things. I feel myself moving in that direction. But I love creating. I'm not going to stop. I'm still hitting the streets. As a painter, I haven't been really doing much in the studio, but when I need to paint, it's mostly I want to go on the street and I want to make it direct. I want to give it to people right away. I don't want it to be about trying to submit for a show or something. I want to give it to them. And the apparel line is, again, more of the same. I'm trying to find ways to touch people, ways to make whatever messages I want to bring through like palatable and attractive, and I want it to look good. I just released this varsity jacket, which you ordered one of, so I can't wait till you get it, man. But I'm excited because it's new territory for me. It's a step up in price point. It's all wool. The body of it is wool, and the sleeves are this beautiful pebbled leather, and it's got wool and embroidered patchwork done. And I had a good time in designing it, and I want to move into that with the fashion more. Signature pieces, special pieces, pieces that are collectible. I'm doing a maximum of 25 of the varsity jackets. You know this, but I'm saying it for the audience. And so that 25 will be a special collector's piece for people, and then we'll do something new, you know. And if I don't sell 25 of them, if I sell 10 of them, then that's even more special a group as time goes on, you know. And I build it, then it's even that much more special. So that's what I'm going to do with the fashion stuff is diversify. There it is. That's our first. That's the Greenwood varsity jacket, and it's celebrating the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is better known as Black Wall Street. And it just so happens that this year marks the 100th year anniversary of its destruction in a race riot. And I'm not celebrating the destruction, but it's an opportunity for us to look back, remember things we've done as a culture, remember how we've been self sufficient, remember how we've been economically empowered, to remember also how much of a threat that is to the powers that be, to the white supremacist mind, how much of a threat us being self-sufficient and self-determined is, and to be on guard for that, but also that we can do it again. We've done it before. That's not the only time in America that we've done it. We've done this. It's not something we don't haven't done and have to figure out. We just need to do it again and again and again.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, Eesuu, I want to thank you for being here. It's been a blessing as always, and you're welcome back whenever you want.
You let me know. I loved it. I had a good time. I can talk and talk and talk. So I appreciate you, man, and I'm proud of the work you're doing at Monterey Bay. And I want to thank you for having me, and I want to thank Sonia too for making it so smooth and clean. It looks beautiful, and thank you for everybody who participated in the audience.
Thank you. And with that, I want to give a shout out to all of our viewing audience. Thank you for being here with us. Thanks to our CBSS student family. This work that we're doing with all these presentations, with the mentoring, with the research opportunities is all for you all. I want to send a special shout out, of course, to the CBSS action team who plans and puts these things together with me. Thanks to Sonia Pina, our event producer. Be aware that we have another great event coming up on March 5th, the first ever CBSS virtual house party. You're going to have everything from games, networking, toasts, to a soul train line happening there as an opportunity to keep introducing CBSS to the CSUMB community, um, building a family together. So be with us on March 5th from 3 to 5 p.m. If you go to the CBSS website, the registration information is already there. Also, to help do this work, donate a little something to CBSS. It'll always be useful. It's a tax deductible donation. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time. Peace.